absolutely in 8 hours when you pay attention. And today we're going to take 8 hours and like literally crunch it down into the next 60 minutes. To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly. That last part I love the best. It kind of reminds me of, do you remember when they first came out with the is it THX or whatever, the audio sound in the theater?
Yeah.
And it was like that from front to back on you. That was awesome. But so DJ, today is Wins and Losses Friday. And holy doodle, do we have a lot of wins to talk about.
What a win. Oh my gosh.
You know, I think to this week, you could have had so many losses and the wins would have catapulted the losses, like trumped them instantly, like hands down, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, and before we get into the wins and losses Friday, I know that, you know, I guess I'll just baseline it with this. So DJ and I are talking offline there a minute ago. And one thing that came very prevalent is DJ and I both spent like the full time. I mean, the odd time, you know, you click your video off because you have to go to the bathroom or whatever. But I don't think either of us ate for the entire day. It was like monsters and coffee all day just to keep us going.
I was frozen. I was frozen in my seat. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to move.
I know. It was awesome. And every single guest that we had on were incredible. And they all, you know, the beautiful thing was they all had these key points that drove the perspective forward, and one stacked on top of the other, right? And
exactly.
And it's funny because we're sitting offline and we're talking about like, what was your big takeaways? And you and I were listening to the same people, the same words, but we actually have different takeaways. And I'm really interested to dive into this today because the takeaways, and I think every one of you that spent, you know, I know there was a couple that were literally glued to their seats for the most part of the day.
Ryan, thank you.
I think they're going to take something different away as well. Yeah. And it's like, but it's, you know, for wins and losses, I'd like to kind of go through what you saw as the takeaways. You know, we'll talk about what I saw as the takeaways, and I'd love to hear from the audience as to what they saw as the takeaways, because I'm telling you, like, I mean, it was incredible. Like, for those of you that didn't see it, while we're on this session, I'll actually post in the comments, and then we'll make sure when we put it up online, we'll put the actual marathon link in the comments, because my Lord, I mean, if y'all got 8 hours that you want to spend learning, and I know it's a long time, and DJ, you and I are going to come up with
notes, because these are notes from it. It was crazy. I just kept going. The notes was
yeah. Jeff, good morning, my friend. And you know what? Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Jeff says, hey guys, a great week for you guys. Knocked it out of the park on Wednesday. Thanks, brother. Appreciate that. And you know, so go. I want to hear what are your top 5 things that, and I know there's probably a lot more, because for me there's like 20 things, but just really your top 5 things that you really took from Wednesday, DJ. And before we do that though, we got to talk about there we go. You know what we got to do? We got to throw some audio in there for people that are listening on the podcast, because they can't see those cool motion graphics going on about wins and losses. But I think this week is going to be about wins, DJ. I really do. So share with us. You know, how could
we lose from that event on Wednesday? Oh my goodness!
You can't. But you know what? Here's the thing, and just to take perspectives into account, I remember. Let me share a quick story with you. I remember I was at a Bob Proctor event, right? And it was his Matrix event. And I think the price tag was like $15,000 to get in. And you had people from all over the world fly in for this 4-day event. Like, we spent 4 8-hour days. And then on the 5th day, we all went back to Bob Proctor's house and had dinner. And it was a really cool 4-day event.
Oh man, that was amazing. We have to talk more about that.
Like 8 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where I met Brian. It's the one I met Brian at.
Oh, no
where
kidding.
Brian wasn't supposed to be there, but one of the speakers that he had, like, and he'd bring in speakers that
That
speak
guy
for an
was
hour or two.
amazing. That
Yeah,
guy,
yeah, he brought in Brian, and the speaker actually canceled, and then he just called Brian and said, "Hey, listen, can you do it?" And Brian says, and here's the thing, here's the giver, right? Brian is like, gosh, 30 grand to hire him, like, corporately. And he's like, "I'll do it for free." And he just and Bob booked him a flight. The next day, he was in the seminar talking to us for 3.5 hours. And I wish Brian could have had a longer segment, because the stories and the strategy this man have just changed people's lives. But fast forward, right? There was people from all over the globe, and one person out of 35 people at the end of the event said, "I didn't get anything from this. I want my money back." And I mean, like, I think there was about 35 people. So 34 people had a life-changing experience, like life-changing, but one
I
person
believe it.
didn't. So, you're always gonna, and that day showed me, like, because when I was good friends with the people that are involved in the Bob Proctor Association, and I knew Bob, and I remember speaking to one of them after, and they said, "Dan, what did you get out of it?" I said, "Oh my gosh, like, completely changed my life." And they said, "It's just, some people just don't see it. And some people might hear it from somebody on a YouTube call, or a friend in passing, or even see it on, like, a National Enquirer, and that sentence changes their life. But a 4-day event with some of the like
That's
deepest
amazing.
minds on earth when it comes to multiple sources of income and positivity, and law of attraction and all that, they just didn't see it." So it's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see what other people are saying about it as well. And so for any of you that are watching or listening, whatever it is, if you were on, share with us what your
Yes,
biggest
please. Your
ahas or your
takeaways, and
takeaways were.
yeah.
While we wait for that to come in, DJ, why don't you share with us?
So and so first, obviously, want to start off, and I've thanked everybody on LinkedIn, but again, just want to thank everybody for joining us for that. I know and Dan for putting that together. I mean, it
Thank you.
was a it was a Nigel, let's do this. Okay, we're doing this. And 48 hours later, we had a list, and we're like, all right, shit, we're doing it. And so it was amazing. I can't even believe how it all kind of snowballed and rolled into its stuff. And snowball effect, speaking of, that was one of the great things I think Nigel talked about. But big takeaways for me really were and kind of really helped me. I was with what's going on, obviously, in the world today. There's a lot of craziness and a lot of division, and to see a bunch of leaders in this industry when this industry is becoming the hot topic. I mean, supply chain drivers, that and so to see all of these people with the same concept of service. Service was kind of like the leading force of the whole message from everybody. In the end, was leading with service, and the rest will follow. And it's the Zig Ziglar quote we always quote and talk about, but it really is the key to being successful in this. And really, I think just having that service and leading with service first, I think just gives you more of a sense of feeling too. And that's what I really got out of everybody. The other thing was mindset. And we talk about that all the time, mindset, and just how powerful really what your mind was. There's so many of these great leaders talking about mindset. Brian was probably, man. And then Rico, obviously, with the two choices. That's always that really changed my life. Just hearing some of his takeaways and more. I could talk to him for hours about that. I think it really, uh, again, yeah, just really changed my life in a lot of ways with the two choices, and just kind of putting that into perspective. And again, like I said, like we talked about in it with Rico, and I talked about with Rico, the advantage of not only knowing that you have two choices, but that you can always, with your next choice, kind of get back on track.
Mhm.
Just really is like just make the choices, take the risk, do it. What can you lose? Just make the next choice to get you to your target. And so that's always been a really big thing that I thought of, and putting that into perspective. Um, skill sets, skill sets. I think it was, I can't remember. Somebody had mentioned about drivers and transferable skill sets, and I think skill sets is the big key that I got out of that. Everybody that was on there, man, if you anybody who listened to that, I will listen to it over and over again. And I know Dan, over the next few weeks and months, we're going to start to kind of trim that out and share some of those specific things that really stuck with us. But um, skill set is, there's so many different skills from each one of those leaders that you can learn that's going to change uh, this. If you're in this industry for a career and not just the job or the next step, and again, look, there's nothing wrong with it just being a job. Still, you want to invest, because whatever you're investing in yourself is going to continue with you no matter what path you take. And then I mean, really, just how nice everybody was in the end. Uh, it really was just about kindness and caring about the other person, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and being present. That was the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway. Greg really talked about it. Brian was all about it and being there in the moment. Talked about it in those stories with his daughters. Oh my goodness, did that strike a chord with me? I feel like I've being the life that I have. I mean, I have 5 kids. I have 21 year old, 20, 19, all the way down to a 2 year old. So starting
Yeah,
over,
I still shake my head at that. 'Cause,
but
brother, you're busy, man. Like
I'll tell you,
you
man,
know,
that that
I have a 22 and a 20, and that's sometimes just watching them grow up, and like
it's
5
crazy.
children. That's a lot of children, buddy. Like that's a lot of
It's
different direction, right? And I
crazy, and that
guess because you have little ones,
yeah,
and now you're kind of at that point in your life where
got it.
you're running a resale business, you're running a transportation business, you're trying to do podcasts, you're trying to change the world. Like those 4 things alone, there's probably not enough time in the day for most people to do it as well as with a family. I could see you having that pull on your heartstrings at that point.
Absolutely, yeah. It was killer, especially thinking it wasn't more because again, a lot of these things are lessons you learn in time and experience. And unfortunately, by experiences, usually are failures. People like to call them mistakes or lessons, is what I like to call them. But through those lessons or mistakes, and that's where it tugged on me. I know, being a young dad with the first set, my older set, and thinking of the differences in the mindset. Again, the mind. But being present, you touched on a good thing, and we never really got to talk about it. But Grant Cardone broke this down, and broke down. And again, I've seen so many different. Mark Wahlberg, he wakes up at 4, he does this, he does that, and all these different crazy schedules. The Grant Cardone had created his own little schedule. The thing I loved about it was he made the focus, and he made the point when he talked, whatever I listened to this on, made the point that if there's only a couple hours throughout the day that he had time blocked. I mean, literally time blocked his whole day from the morning he woke up to, and I pretty much do the same. But those time blocks, uh, when he was with his family, with his wife, if it was kid time or whatever, he was present in that. No phone, no anything, like Brian talked about. It was all about being present in that moment, even if it's only 5 minutes. I think Brian mentioned that, and Grant kind of talked the same. Even if it's only 5 minutes, make it a good 5 minutes, make it worth it.
Mm.
And that's the same thing. We're talking about family and kids, but that's your customers too. They want to know that you actually care. That's Greg.
It's
Greg
funny
was big
because I
about that.
remember a customer of mine saying to me, we were out at lunch and we hadn't quite closed the deal yet. And he looks at me, and this was probably 10, 15 years ago. And he looked at me and he said, "So let me ask you this." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "I give you the business. How long until we're not doing lunch or you're not paying attention to me?" And I went, and of course, at that point in my career, I was like, "No, I pay attention to all my customers." And I literally paid attention to the ones I was courting to get business. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
full
listen.
transparency, that's
Everybody,
just what I
everybody
did.
on this, if they're going to say they didn't do that, they're lying. You
Yeah,
start there until you learn. But again, yeah,
absolutely. And I looked at him, I said, "What do you mean? Like, no, he goes, no, he goes, it happens all the time. He goes, Dan, I understand it. He goes, trust me, I get it. Like, you're in sales. Your job is to close accounts and service accounts, but you're going to pay me a lot of attention when I first give you the business because you're going to want to make sure you do it properly. But as things settle into a flow, you're not going to pay as much attention to me. And he goes, and I'm not saying that like, oh my gosh, pay attention to me. He goes, I want to understand when these times and the caring for my account are going to kind of almost be assumed and taken for granted. And to me, I started looking back, and that was the first day I started asking myself, like, what would my life look like if I never lost a customer? And why did I lose customers? Like, what was the main reason? And it was amazing because you want to talk being truthful with yourself. I mean, brother, trust me, I play a lot of golf. I see a lot of golfers, it's kind of, and they just touch the ball to fluff it up on the grass. But again, and it's something as simple as that. And don't get me wrong, I've done it. But you're not being truthful to your score. Right. So, like, sure, we all want that great shot out of the rough to stick 2 feet from the pin and drop the putt for a great up and down. But when you touch it, you're really not being truthful to yourself. Now, some people will say, well, Dan, it's just a fun game. No, but you're not. Like, so if you don't count, if you don't play the ball where it lies, and in life, if we don't play the hand we're dealt, I think we're cheating ourselves. And it really got me thinking in business. Like, at what point do we take our customers for granted? At what point do we take our spouses for granted? At what point do we take our relationships for granted? Like, and that was probably when I first met Brian, that was probably the biggest takeaway as well, is like, holy shit. And don't get me wrong, I haven't been perfect since that day either. Far from it.
We're humans. We're perfectly imperfect.
100%. So Brian comes back and Brian says, personal challenge for the coming month: identify one specific way you can begin to return loyalty to your customers or clients and begin doing it. That's a great takeaway from Wednesday, Brian. Amazing.
Yeah.
What I've always believed in, as you know, I was on the receiving end of sales calls and preach 3 things: know their business, don't try to sell them freight out of the gate, be a damn good listener as to what the prospect or customer is. And hold on just a sec. What the prospect is saying. Listen more, speak less.
Yep. Got two ears and one mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak.
So good lesson. I'll share with you, because I'm kind of reversed from most of the stuff that you heard. And I think this is great because we were both on the same show. So my number one takeaway was when Greg said, I can't make a mistake. And to me, everything start like, before he said that, I would have had 5 other takeaways. And before, when Nigel would have just been on, I would have had a certain takeaway number 1, and then Brian a certain takeaway number 2, and then Rico a certain takeaway number 3. So for me, it started with the end in mind. I love Stephen Covey. I've always, for the majority of my business, I've always started with the end in mind. Like DJ, when we go to build a program, what's the result? What is the end? And then if we understand the end and this is the destination, here's the steps we need in order to
reverse engineering.
Huge. So reverse engineering. And I talk about that all the time. So when Greg said, guys, here's the thing: when I make my next change, I can't be wrong. To me, everything started with that concern, because Greg is not alone. Like, anyone,
not alone at all. Oh my gosh. And I'm so glad you brought that up. Anybody who did watch, if you didn't watch right now, if you're a broker, if you're trying to court, as Greg mentioned, any new clients, watch Greg speak and watch it a few times. The thing I took away was, and Greg, listen, we're here for you, man. But you can see the stress level of to the point of what Dan's talking about. You could see the stress level all over his face. It was, oh my gosh! Like, and your point,
think, like, when you're talking a shipping budget, right, that goes from 20 to 45 million. When you're talking the exponential increases in costs, he's not the only one. And to me, that was my biggest takeaway. I mean, we had multi-million platinum speakers speaking, like multi-millionaires that have given their time to speak to us on Wednesday. And he still made the biggest impact because, again, for me, my vision is 1,000, like everything I look at is how do I get 10,000 sales reps to do $1 million GP? The lens, that's the lens I look through everything that I do. Every single waking moment is that lens. Like even on weekends is that lens, because it's like I'm always looking for that advantage to give to my community to help them understand. So any thought, any idea, any strategy, I write it down. I mean, my notes are like my favorite thing. Voice memos. I probably have 4 gigs on my phone just of voice memos. And if you understand,
I believe it.
Understand file size, that's a shit ton of voice memos. But
because they're very small files.
For me, it was like when Greg said that, the whole day came into clarity. The whole day. So I'd like to kind of reverse engineer this for a second, DJ.
Yeah.
So the end result on everything we do, our next customer cannot make a mistake. So when they choose you, it can't be a mistake. It has to be the mint. And then you take that and you say, okay, how do I ensure my customers don't make a mistake by choosing me, right? I think it's a big question. And a lot of brokers will say, well, because I'm awesome, but you're only awesome at specific things. Like Greg even said, he says, if you come to me and you tell me you're awesome at everything, like I won't even return your email. So those days are gone. So anyone that's living that right now, I don't care. Listen, I don't care if you're the largest broker on the planet, if you're a CH Robinson, XPO, whatever, you're not the best at everything. I'm sorry. No. It just doesn't happen like that. Now, your individual sales reps might be really good at one thing, which means as a corporation, you might be really good at all areas, but you as a sales rep, you're not. I'm not. DJ's
Find
not.
Your niche.
Jeff's not. Brian's not. Ryan's not. Like all of our everybody that strives to learn has a niche. That was number 2, is you can't make a mistake. Number 2, and every single person in a different way said it, especially the people in logistics. They said, you have to have a niche, understand what business you want, and get extremely good at that. That was takeaway number 2, was the business, right?
I think it was even more to kind of go a little deeper into that though, Dan, so they really understand that. I think not only finding a niche as far as like reefer or drive-in or this or that, I think it was lanes, I think it was product, it was an industry. Literally, they almost, a few of them seemed to drive home like produce or vegetable, it was something that was.
So here's kind of what I wrote down when it came to niche, right? Because I think for the most part, a lot of people get skewed when they understand this niche, right? And I think it's the challenge, and I can tell you from a lot of the salespeople that I train, they're like, but what is my superpower? So I wrote down a couple of things when, Joe Lynch was speaking, when Sarah was speaking, when Nicole and Shay were speaking, so I wrote down kind of the theme: know your lane, become the best at one end of the business to start. And it's funny because, I speak to a lot of people, and having an online business as well as an in-person business, I guess, for lack of a better term, so for high performance logistics sales, we have this in person that you and I are doing, right? I have my online stuff where it's coaching, sales training and all that, but it's online. And it's funny because my online coaches talk about the same thing. They say, listen, create one main product or 2 or 3, no more, but everything leads to those products, right? So the mission, 10,000 sales reps doing over $1 million GP, all leads to, those products. All ends lead to that product, but become the best at one thing and then branch out. So know your lane. Brian, for example, is huge in this intermodal space and understands rail more than most people will ever understand rail. So he's going in, he's in that niche. Jeff, another guest or person that's always on the show and always listening, he's in that automotive. When he was on a couple of weeks, he's like, I'm automotive. So he's niching that out. I was pharmaceuticals and chemicals. Those were kind of my 2 big things that I really wanted to focus on. When I was on an asset side, it was electronics, anything high value electronics, the Apple, the Microsofts, the Xboxes of the world, which is also Microsoft, but all that kind of stuff. And willingness to step into the darkness. That to me, when Joe Lynch said that, I was like,
yes,
holy crap. Because how many of us do not want to try something we're not experienced in for fear of whether it be failure, whether it be looking stupid, so on and so forth. So to me, that was huge. Another part that I know I said a couple of times and Brian said was, you don't know, but I know I'm going to figure it out. Like, you don't know how you're going to get. Most people don't, especially now, you're making 5, 10 grand a month, 20 grand, 30 grand a month in GP. You don't know how you're going to get to the $100, $105, $110,000 a month. That's a huge jump, right? But just like our taillights, when we started talking about, the headlights, you get in a car at nighttime, you're not worried about what's going to happen when you get to the end of the taillight because you're so used to it. And just like, one thing that the majority of everyone that got on said was like, you take that one step and you go a step further. So that was kind of my number 3 of the 5 takeaways is, the theme of knowing your lane. Understand, like, get into something you're passionate about. And you and I have talked about this a million times, DJ, because anything you do every day, all day, if there is no passion, if you're just doing it for a paycheck, eventually that paycheck will not drive you enough to do what you need to do. And even more than that, DJ,
you'll do just enough. You'll do just enough.
Well, but even more than that, right? Like, I think most people do just enough in a job. When it's a career, here's what I kind of look at, and here's how my brain processes. If you're not consistently raising the level, I don't think you're doing yourself justice. Like forget about customers, forget about anything. Like there are so many levels inside. Like you and I sitting here in the last couple of months, we've created something pretty cool in this podcast, right? We have had success in our individual industries, in your niches and my niches. We've had success. But I'm telling you right now, you have 10 more levels in you that you haven't even experienced yet. I know I have 10 more levels in me. Jeff and I yesterday, and Jeff, I'll call it out here, brother. We got into a wager for 2022. Where we're going to go head to head for a couple of things, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. But Jeff knows he's got another 10 levels in him, right? And this, I think, is where we as salespeople, or just as people, we get into a career, we get a certain level of whatever we call success, whether it be, home time, equity. I mean, success is so perspective driven. It's unreal. I do not think a beautiful car means I'm successful. Like, if I go out tomorrow and buy a $150,000 vehicle, I don't consider that a success. Like, I just consider, okay, I really want that car, so I'll buy it. Right. Like, but other people, when they drive, a car that has the Mercedes logo or the BMW logo or the Tesla logo or any logo, they're like, I've made it. I'm a success. Or the person that can afford a $2,000 suit and that's a success. Like, everybody has a different perspective of it. Right. I have a friend of mine, his big version of success is being able to work 3 days a week, modest home, 1 vacation a year, but he spends all the time with his family. That's his version of success. And some people that love vacations might say, 1 vacation a year, are you crazy? That's not successful. You have, but that's their version of success. Now, does every one of them have another level? Like, perfect example. Does Jeff Bezos have 10 more levels in him? He sure does. He sure does. Like everyone does. I fully believe. And to me,
I agree too.
The 4th takeaway was, if you really want to become everything, you owe it to yourself first. You owe it to your family, and you owe it to your future customers to raise that bar 10, 20, 30 times to get to the height of what you can do. Agreed. And number 5 is dual polarity. Make the choice to be present. Make the choice to always put your client's needs, your family's needs, and everyone else's needs ahead of yours. If your need is commission, you put the value you can bring to the table ahead of your commission, and you will double and triple your commission.
Absolutely.
Jeff says, I'm pumped. It's Jeff. So here, okay. So you know what, Jeff, I feel like we should send you a link and you should come on, because I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm gonna destroy you, brother.
Oh, no! Oh,
I
no!
am so gung ho for our
Oh,
challenge. You know what, Jeff? Hold
right.
on just a sec, brother. I just copied the link. Let
Forget
me head
Friday
over to the
wins
old
and losses. This might be
links in
fiery
here.
Friday.
Jeff,
No,
Jeff, I just sent you a link on LinkedIn. We want you to jump in here, brother. We want you to jump in here, brother, because this is going to be so much fun, DJ. So Jeff and I have a goal. We both have our missions, right? And so Jeff sent me a message yesterday, and he says, "Okay, I got a wager for," and it's like a dinner and being able to meet each other. So it's actually going to be really fun because I have an idea of 2023 when the bet's over, where we're going to meet, how we're going to meet, and it's actually part of our 2023 summit where we're going to share kind of some of the strategies. So Jeff doesn't even know this yet, but he's getting on stage with me, and we're going to share a year-long challenge with strategies and everything to every salesperson there. So you know when I tell you I think a year or two out, I think a year or two out. It's not just bullshit. Hot air.
That's playing chess, not checkers.
Yes,
that's how you win,
100%,
guys.
brother, 100%. So, Jeff, I sent you that. I don't know if you're going to jump on or not. I mean, I don't know if you know. I could totally trash talk now, but I'm not. So, and I know Jeff can come on and he trash talk. He's from Jersey, man. He could trash talk.
Oh man, he's gonna bring it. Yeah, he's gonna bring it.
So for me, those are my 5 big takeaways. Now, did y'all see that? Did y'all hear that? So it's not that DJ and I disagree. Oh, there's the man himself. It's not that DJ and I disagree on the 5. It's the fact that we were both in a position where we heard different things. Yeah. Right? DJ never mentioned Greg's comment about the next time I do something, it's got to be right. But he was in the same call. It's that it's I often think of it. Bob Proctor said it great when he said, Dan, think of it like this. There's a frequency, a radio frequency. And if you're on an AM frequency, don't ever expect to hear an FM channel. If you're on a rock channel, don't ever expect to hear reggae. If you're on a reggae channel, don't ever expect to hear jazz because you're tuned into specific channels. And that's the beautiful thing about an 8-hour event like that. And I guarantee you, we're going to ask Jeff right now what his 5 takeaways were. So Jeff, I'll give you like 30 seconds to prepare your thoughts about his 5 takeaways were, but they're going to be different. Everyone's different. And that's the beautiful thing about what we do. That's the beautiful thing about us being here 3 days a week is y'all are going to take different things away. And DJ's going to say something in a different way than he said 3 weeks ago. And you're going to be like, ding, 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 ding. Oh my God, DJ, that was life-changing. Jeff, welcome, brother.
Hey guys.
Welcome.
I like the handlebars, dude.
Hey, I had a full Christmas beard and my wife was a little ticked off, so I had to get rid of it.
Why did the malls call you and say you can't do Santa this year? Or?
No, I was about 50 pounds lighter than what I should be.
You remind me of, I don't know if you watch Yellowstone.
Oh yeah, great show.
Yeah, so you remind me of the guy in Yellowstone because he has the big handlebar too.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. So Jeff, welcome on, brother. Welcome on. I'm really excited. I told you we'd get you on sooner or later. So Jeff and I have. Oh, you know what, Jeff? Before we even get there, what was your takeaway from Wednesday's show? Like, if you can give us kind of 5 things you took away from the show? Love to hear what you have to say, man.
Yeah, first and foremost, those 8 hours were, to me anyway, very productive, and a lot of things that I believe in were definitely said during the podcast. Not to say that I'm extremely good at what I do. I'm not. I'll tell you first and foremost, because I'm not a sales guy, but I'm learning every single day from the mistakes that other people did when they used to contact me, and I used to take those calls, and I was like, what the hell? I mean, learn my business, So first and foremost, the 5 things that that I believe in was the empathy of the recipient who's receiving your call, value their time, learn their business, understand what is being said, don't oversell something that you know nothing about, and just be a good listener. Speak less, listen more, because you can't sell what you don't know. Coming out of the gate and saying, I can cut your cost, I can do that, I'm great at this. You're really not, because you got to understand the prospect or even your customer's business a little bit more so that you can get involved with it. And when I was an account manager, not a sales guy, but account manager, one of my bosses said to me, he said, the ideal goal is to get a seat at the board table and understand what their strategy is for the upcoming month, quarter, year, and be a participant in that and understand, and then show the value and what you can bring to the table to help them reach their objectives and goals. And if you can do that, it's gravy. It's absolutely gravy. Don't be the sales guy that wants 100 customers, because you're going to fail. Get good customers, get rid of the ones that don't produce anything, that takes up a lot of your time and doesn't produce anything. So, you have to have your own strategy as well in this business.
Mm-hmm. I love that, Jeff. I really do. But again, you notice the difference? Like, what you heard was different than what DJ heard, was different than what I heard. But in the end, if we go back to the idea of the theme, the theme of it is all the same. But you're just, and I love that. And, before we go any further, I want to make sure that we give you a shout out because, for a couple of different reasons. One, you're always on the show, and DJ and I want to thank you for that. Yes. You're always contributing.
No problem, man.
Awesome
Seriously.
Comments, awesome information, awesome strategy, awesome thought processes. And moreover, this process, you're now starting your own podcast. So I want to give you a couple of minutes, share with everybody what your podcast is about, when is it starting, where can they find it, and all that kind of jazz. Because I want to make sure anyone listening also knows that, there's big dovetails in our industry, and this is not cutthroat. This is not, hold it all to your chest and don't share shit. This is a collaborative event,
Yeah.
Sarah had it right beside her when she was on yesterday.
Exactly.
Collaboration is
the future of business.
Absolutely.
100%. So share with the audience, because now you got some people watching, some people listening. Talk about your podcast, what your mission is on the podcast, what the end result is, and let's get you some subscribers, pal.
Hey, I appreciate that, Dan, and thanks, DJ. The name of my podcast, it actually starts on January 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've got a great co-host, DJ. He said that he would join in because I believe he believes in the cause. I've been in the business for a very long time. I've been listening, I've been reading, and just a lot of things that I don't understand, but I understand, if that makes any sense. And the goalposts are completely moving from east to west and, north to south all the time. And it has to do with the crisis at hand. And the name of the podcast is Blindside Alley, because let's face it, guys, in the logistics business, it's not a job, it's a challenge, because every day you come to work, it's not the same position. You're getting blindsided one way or another. Might be a call, truck breaking down. It's how you respond to all these different issues out there. And the thing with the crisis, is that we talked about capacity. We talked about all the ships coming in. The one thing that's missing is data. The customer ordering trends, buying trends, and the data's been there from the beginning, but nobody talked about it. And everybody has a reactive mindset, the way that I'm seeing it and reading it. There's no proactivity there in trying to resolve the issues. They're just reacting to what's happening today and not really thinking about tomorrow. I mean, I read it every single day. I think you agree with me. So what I want to do is just play a neutral role here. And I've got Dr. Yayas from University of Southern California, an SME in supply chain logistics. In supply chain, period. He's a highly intelligent guy. I also have Bill Paul from Logitech Talent. Great guy, on the labor side. it's going to be tough questions that I'm going to ask. DJ is going to ask, and it's just going to be raw. It's uncanned. Nobody is going to have a call prior to the podcast. It's just going to be live and raw. And I just need the answers. I think a lot of people out there need to get the answers as well, because there's a lack of collaboration. That's all I read now is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. And in order to fix this problem, you have to have the three entities. You have to have collaboration between the service provider, the shipper, and the carriers that are out there. If any one of those are missing, you're going to fail miserably, because something's going to go horribly wrong. And I know that from my past experience. And I've been collaborating for a long time, and I learned still to this day. There's much, much more to be done in this industry.
Beautiful. That's a perfect cause, brother. It's perfect. It's this industry is riddled with paranoia, fear, and a concern to be open.
Yes.
And share. And, when I was growing up in brokerage, there were some concerns, but even from a supplier sharing perspective, with the thought process of, well, if I give Dan the name of my supplier, like even from a colleague perspective, that means less trucks for me. For me, it became more of, I really need to know who you are and how you work with people before I even offer you one of my suppliers, because I've spent years building this relationship and you can shatter it in 2 seconds flat. And, you've seen it. I've seen it. DJ's seen it, where you have sales reps come to the table, something goes wrong, and they start screaming. Like I can't tell you how many times I've had suppliers call me that I have a serious relationship with, and we work to better the business. They have the same mission. We want to serve. We work to better the business. Hey, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, this is how we can decrease dwell time at your dock. Why don't we try it? Yep. And like all of these things. And then you give the supplier to somebody else, or if a colleague comes and says, like, I really need a supplier to this area. I hear you move a lot of freight. You give it to them. And in 2 days, I'm getting a call back going like, listen, I can't deal with this person. Yeah. It's,
I've seen that. I've seen that a ton of times as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw the post on LinkedIn this morning. Gentleman had reposted Dwayne Johnson's People's Choice Award speech from December 8th. And he said something, and it was a quote from Muhammad Ali. And I posted it actually, DJ, on your post as a comment this morning. Yep. The service to others is the rent you pay to have a room on this earth.
Powerful.
Like, think of that power in that.
Yes.
Like, that's incredible. And I think that, if service is the key focus and service is the key point, we have to be open. One, to be vulnerable. Like, I've had a couple of people come back to me from the from the Wednesday show. Sorry, I got it. Excuse me, from the Wednesday show, and they said, "Do you really cry at shows?" And I'm like, it's funny because last night my wife and I were watching Station 19, and like, quote, tears are coming down my face again, right? And it's funny because tears are coming down my face, and I got my hand doing this, and I'm thinking of the individual that sent me an email and said, "Do you really cry at?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do."
Yes, he does. You just said it.
Dottie says, "Love that quote. Isn't it awesome, Dottie?"
Dottie.
It's a really good quote, and I think if we
just end on that quote and really break down that quote, I mean, if we really lived to that while we're here, if you really live to that from this day forward, just live to that. The only way you're going to stay on this earth, whoever you're believing is keeping you here, whatever it is or whoever, and you just believe that the only reason you're going to stay here is by servicing others. Just believe it. Believe it and live your life that way. Mm-hmm. Watch what happens.
And you think about it.
Watch what happens.
In logistics, how it'd be interesting if you did a poll, right? Like a truthful poll, not just one saying, of course I care about service and value. Right. But when it comes down to it, and you have to maybe break even or lose money in order to service the customer. Do you go back to the customer and ask for more money, or do you pick a lower tier supplier who you know is gonna screw it up, but you make some money at it? It'd be interesting. And hey, listen, I've been on both sides of that fence, boys.
Yeah.
I've been on the side of the fence where it's like, I'm making money. I don't care. I'll put a third tier person on it just to deliver it, and I'll deal with the issues when they happen. And I've been of the opinion where, like we talked about when Thomas was on, hey, we caused you $7,000 in issues. I'll pay the $7,000, no problem, and lost money for 3 months on every single shipment to pay it back.
You know something? I think what it comes down to are two things, right? I'll do this, right? The two choices are: do you want a short-term business relationship, or do you want a long one? And how much does that customer mean to you? And the other thing is, it's a lot cheaper to keep a customer on board than to go out to find a replacement. And I know that's a fact.
And
I think Willie Nelson says it about lights too, right? In Dukes of Hazzard. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'll dovetail that, Jeff, because it's a lot cheaper to keep a good customer on board, right? If it's a crap customer and things happen, I find it a lot more expensive because it chews up a lot more of your time to solve something that then's going to have, take 120 days to pay, or then when they pay, they short pay because there was issues, there's all that. But however, here's the dovetail to that as well. If you have long-term clients, they're going to be good clients because that's the only people that stay long-term. If your focus is on that, you're immediately going to get the good clients, right? So
absolutely.
When I say immediately, everybody understand that, like Greg said, and I'll kind of go right back to that, because I think as one of the major points for you, the professional sales rep listening to this, the next decision can't be a mistake. And to me, that was, out of everyone that spoke, that was probably, as a sales rep, the most important comment to lynch onto, because 2022, 2 years, 2020 and 2021, 2 years of the most fractured supply chains ever in the history that they have recorded. That means you got to be on top of your game. Pick your lane. If you want to have more traction, if you want to get further ahead, understand, 8 mile the shit out of, you can't make a mistake. I get it. I understand it. That's why you want me here. And afterwards, after I've solved this for you here in this function, not this, not this, not this, not this, this, then let's talk about this. Because let me prove to you that you made the right choice, not the wrong choice. And, to me, I mean, again, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but man, I'll keep kicking until everyone gets it. It was so incredible to hear Greg say that. And like second he said, you see Thomas's face, he's like, damn right. Like, I can't make any wrong decisions.
I think Thomas's eyes even got real big. Like, oh yeah, he was right. He was right there.
Yeah. It's like, yes. And the thing is, you go back, DJ, you go back, Jeff, and you think, like, how many times have we gotten involved with stuff? Like, I'm freaking guilty left, right, and center. I'm like, no, I could do this. It's like, I've never done it before. No, I could do it. I can make it happen. And it like just blows up in your face. And again, it's one of these things we've talked about it many, many, many times. This is a visual decision for somebody in a company. Like, things are going okay with our supplier. I can make them better. They go with you and you make them worse, right? That's a bad decision on their part, but it's a mistake. It's a mistake. No. when we, and again, think about it like this, right? They have the Murphy's Law, where you bring a customer on, the first load always goes bad. No. And I always say, no, who invited Murphy to this goddamn party? Nobody likes Murphy. But it's one of these things where it goes bad because you didn't put everything in place so it wouldn't go bad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's not the reality. I think we've made it the reality. Like, because I mean, how many times have you guys heard that? Like,
I mean, there's another saying too. There's another saying too, which is, you're only as good as the last shipment you handled. So you can get 1 billion data boys, and one of them goes bad. Guess who the customer is going to remember most? That one shipment that goes bad. So as much work as you put into your first one, you put the same amount of effort into it, your 1 billionth one. So, I mean, that's just the way it is. And in logistics, like I said, you get blindsided every single day. Don't overpromise and underdeliver, because anything can go wrong. And so, did you make the right decision on hiring me? Things are going to go wrong. I think the answer to that is, how do you react to the issues that happen? Because if you have a customer that believes no issues are going to happen when they hire you, well, guess what? You're wrong. They're going to have many of them. It's the reaction to the problem and how quickly you solve it.
Love that. Love that.
Agreed.
Everybody watching and listening, I hope you grab that video. Go to my profile, Dan Deegan. Check it out. Go to at Dan Deegan or at HPLS, Dan Deegan HPLS on Facebook, on LinkedIn. If you're part of the Freight 101 group, go in, check it out there, because we were live on all 3 of those platforms. Do yourself a favor. I mean, even if you just,
watch it. Well, and listen, watch it a couple times.
8 hours is a long time for somebody to sit down and watch. But you know what? The beautiful thing is you can scroll through. Right. Yeah. So you see all the different people coming in, scroll through, listen to the message. If you have time, I totally encourage everyone, watch the whole 8 hours, because there is so much gold there. There's a lot of laughs. There's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of congruency, and there's a lot of collaboration.
A lot of good stuff.
It's the reason we did it the way we did it, where one speaker would stick around for the next speaker, would stick around for the next speaker. And if you watch the progress of the day, it is literally starting from a foundation and building the skyscraper up. And at the top of the skyscraper, we brought 2 customers in to share, here's everything below us and how it all connects. And, we didn't intentionally, actually, full transparency, I don't want anybody to think we intentionally set out to do it like that. It's just really how the cards fell. And in 48 hours, we put together, which could have been one of the most expensive speaking days. We figured it out to be in that neighborhood of $200 and something thousand if you would have paid every single one of those people to come and speak for an hour. That amount of value is just killer, and it's out there. It's on the webs. Now, the only thing is, with everything else on the webs, as things get added, it files to the bottom. So now's your time. It's literally 48 hours old. Go out there, grab it, grab a hold of it, and in my opinion, you've got enough gold there to get 5 levels up to where you are now. I don't care how much you're doing now. I don't care if you're already doing $100,000. You got enough there to get yourself up to $200,000 a month easily.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. We are gearing up. Now we just need Mother Nature to give us winter weather and give me some snow. Everybody pray for snow for the white gold for Dan.
Please. Snow up north. Keep it up north.
I'm good. Brother, I'm good. Keep it up here. I take all I don't want Buffalo snow and everything and bring it up here. I would be in heaven all year, man. Unreal.
Well, I gotta come ride those things with you. Maybe then I'll feel the same way. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Into sledding, brother.
Appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Take care.